Night frosts again. Cold soil that feels more like winter than spring. And you're standing there looking out the window thinking, not yet, it's too early. But let me ask you something honestly. How often does that perfect moment really arrive? Spring doesn't wait. While we hesitate, the soil dries out, the sun climbs higher, and the easiest, most forgiving growing conditions of the entire year quietly slip past us. Here's the good news. There are plants that simply don't care about cold windowsills, chilly nights, or cool soil. They don't panic. They don't stall. They don't wait for summer. In fact, they grow better because of the cold. These plants can give you your first harvest, while your neighbors are still flipping through seed catalogs and talking about what they might plant soon. Maybe you want fresh greens weeks earlier. Maybe you're tired of seedlings that bolt too fast or never really get going. Maybe you've been told that early planting is risky and you don't want to lose another season. Today, I want to show you a different way of thinking. Not advice from books, not theory, but crops that gardeners have trusted for decades. If you plant them correctly, the cold becomes your ally instead of your enemy. If you don't, you lose precious time you can never get back. Stay with me until the end, because I'll explain which crops can go into cold soil, which ones handle freezing temperatures without trouble, and the simple mistake that nearly everyone makes every spring without even realizing it. Most gardeners believe the biggest danger in spring is cold. So they wait. 1 week turns into 2. 2 weeks turn into a month. They're not lazy. They're cautious. And that makes sense, especially if you've ever lost tender plants to frost. But here's the quiet truth. Cold itself is rarely the real problem. The real problem is treating all plants the same. We see tomatoes freeze once, and our brain decides that everything must be protected from cold forever. So seeds that actually want cool soil sit untouched in drawers while the earth outside slowly loses the moisture it saved all winter. That's the first mistake, assuming that what hurts one plant must hurt them all. The second mistake is being afraid of frost after planting. People wait for ideal conditions, even though nature has never worked that way. Spring has always been unpredictable. It always will be. By the time the weather feels safe, the soil is often already dry on top. Seeds struggle. Roots stay shallow. And gardeners wonder why their plants look tired right from the start. The third mistake is trusting the calendar instead of the crop. Planting because it's mid-April or because the neighbor already did it. Plants don't own calendars. They respond to soil, moisture, and daylight. And here's the most important point of all. We often fight nature when we should be listening to it. There are plants that are designed to start life in cool soil. For them, cold isn't a threat. It's a signal. They wake up early while the ground is moist and the sun is gentle. They grow steady roots before heat ever arrives. Gardeners who understand this don't start the season late. They start it right. So the real question isn't whether you're afraid of the cold. The question is whether you know which plants should be first through the door. For many years, we've been taught to see spring as a waiting room, as if gardening begins only after warmth arrives. But spring is not a pause. It's a narrow window. This is the moment when soil holds the most moisture it will have all year. When days are cool enough to reduce stress on young plants. When roots can grow slowly and deeply without being rushed. The mistake most gardeners make is seeing cold as something to avoid rather than something to work with. Plants are not divided by names like vegetables or herbs. They are divided by needs. Some plants need warmth to wake up at all. Others need cool conditions to start properly. Cold-resistant crops are built for this season. Over generations, they learn to sprout in cool soil, grow under short days, and handle steady, cold nights without panic. When we delay planting these crops, we actually make life harder for them. Late planting often leads to weak roots that never catch up. Plants grow fast on the surface but lack strength below. They bolt early, taste bitter, or stop producing just when you expect them to improve. Many gardeners blame the weather, the seed quality, or the soil. But year after year, the real issue is timing. Early sowing isn't brave. It isn't reckless. It's simply understanding what a plant expects from the world when it begins its life. Once you see spring this way, everything changes. Instead of waiting nervously, you move with confidence. Instead of rushing later, you work calmly now. Let's take a slow walk through the crops that you absolutely must plant. And let's talk about why they should be at the top of your gardening calendar. Radishes. Radishes are often the first real success of spring, especially for gardeners who decide to trust cool soil. Many people have noticed something interesting over the years. Radishes planted early almost seem effortless. They sprout evenly, grow steadily, and form clean, crisp roots without much attention. But when radishes are planted later, after the soil warms, everything changes. They rush, they stretch, they flower before they finish their work. This happens because radishes don't like heat when they're young. Warm soil tells them that time is running out. So instead of building a proper root, they hurry toward flowering. Cool soil sends the opposite message. It tells the plant there is no need to rush. There is time. That's why early radishes are usually sweeter, firmer, and more reliable. They grow the way they were meant to grow. If you've ever felt disappointed by radishes that looked promising but tasted sharp or hollow, timing was likely the real reason. Spinach is one of those plants that quietly rewards patience and punishes delay. Many gardeners have noticed that spinach planted early produces thick, tender leaves that seem to last longer. Spinach planted later often shoots upward almost overnight and goes straight to flowering. This isn't bad luck. Spinach simply needs cool days and short daylight to focus on leaf growth. When spinach feels warmth too soon, it thinks its season is ending. So it switches from growing leaves to producing flowers as fast as it can. Planting spinach early allows it to settle into cool soil, spread its roots, and slowly build the leaf mass we actually want. It's one of those plants that teaches us a quiet lesson. If you give it what it needs at the beginning, it asks for very little later. Arugula has a reputation for being sharp and aggressive in flavor, but that reputation usually comes from growing it at the wrong time. Gardeners who plant arugula early often notice something surprising. The leaves are softer. The taste is balanced. The plant grows evenly instead of racing upward. Cold soil and cool air slow arugula down just enough to improve its quality. It takes its time. Heat, on the other hand, makes arugula hurry. And when it hurries, the flavor turns strong and the harvest window becomes very short. Early planting gives you control. It turns arugula from a difficult plant into a generous one. Leafy salads. Leafy salads may look delicate, but they are tougher than many people expect. Over many seasons, gardeners have noticed that salads planted early often form stronger, fuller rosettes. The leaves are juicy, mild, and slow to turn bitter. Cold nights don't frighten them. In fact, light frost often improves their texture. When salads are planted late, they grow fast but shallow. They stretch instead of settling in. Bitterness appears sooner, and the harvest feels rushed. Early planting allows salads to grow at their natural pace. They build strength quietly and reward you with consistent harvests. Dill is one of those plants that prefers a calm beginning. Many gardeners have noticed that dill planted early grows straight, fragrant, and sturdy. It doesn't struggle with temperature swings. It simply adapts. Late planted dill often tells a different story. Thin stems, uneven growth, less aroma. Cold soil doesn't stop dill from germinating. It actually helps regulate its growth. Early sowing lets dill use spring moisture and cool air to build a strong foundation. Once established, it handles the rest of the season with ease. Parsley. Parsley asks for one thing above all else: time. Its seeds are slow to wake up, and many gardeners lose patience waiting for them. But those who sow parsley early often notice much better results. Cold soil combined with steady spring moisture helps parsley seeds germinate more evenly. The plant develops slowly but surely. When parsley is planted late, it feels rushed from the very beginning. Heat arrives before it's ready, and growth stays weak. Early planting gives parsley permission to take its time, and in return, it produces strong, flavorful growth that lasts much longer. Carrots. Carrots are often misunderstood. They are not afraid of cool soil. They are afraid of dry soil. Many gardeners have noticed that early sown carrots emerge more evenly and grow straighter. Spring moisture does much of the work for you. When carrots are planted later, keeping the soil evenly moist becomes a constant challenge. Germination turns patchy. Roots develop unevenly. Cool soil allows carrots to settle in without stress. They grow slowly, which is exactly what they need to form good roots. Early sowing removes much of the struggle that carrots are famous for. Peas. Peas are one of the clearest examples of a plant that belongs to early spring. They germinate in cool soil without complaint. They tolerate cold nights calmly, and they prefer cool weather when flowering. Many gardeners have noticed that early planted peas produce heavier harvests. Late planted peas often suffer once heat arrives. By planting peas early, you allow them to complete the most important stages of growth before summer stress begins. It's not about bravery, it's about timing. Spring onions. Spring onions are steady growers. They don't rush, they don't stall. They respond well to cool conditions. Early planting leads to strong, upright growth with clean flavor. Cold nights don't interrupt them. Late planting often causes uneven development, especially when heat arrives too quickly. Giving spring onions an early start lets them grow without stress, which shows in both taste and texture. Spring garlic. Spring garlic is often overlooked when talking about early planting, but it shouldn't be. Cold soil helps trigger the signals that garlic needs to form proper heads. Planting early allows it to establish roots before real growth begins. Gardeners who wait too long often notice smaller heads and weaker structure. Early planting doesn't push garlic to grow faster. It helps it grow correctly. All of these plants don't just survive cold. They use it. They take advantage of moisture, gentle light, and calm conditions to build strength from the beginning. While they grow, heat-loving crops can wait their turn without pressure. Many gardeners have noticed that the seasons where they planted early felt calmer overall. There was less rushing, less fixing, and fewer surprises. Another common observation is that early started plants handle later stress better. They don't collapse at the first heat wave because their roots were built slowly and deeply. And perhaps the most important experience shared again and again is this. When gardeners stop fearing cold and start understanding it, gardening becomes simpler, not harder. If there's one decision to make after watching this, it's this. Stop waiting for perfect weather. Start listening to the plants. Choose one cold, loving crop and plant it earlier than you usually would. Just one. You'll see the difference with your own eyes. And that's how confidence grows. Not from theory, from experience. If you found this video interesting, subscribe to the Still Growing Seniors channel. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people who love gardening just like you. I'd also love to hear from you. Write a comment and tell me which plant you usually wait too long to plant, or which one surprised you by surviving the cold.